All right, good morning. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to everyone for coming out to support this press conference. And if you're in the media, thank you for coming out to amplify our voice and our message. My name is Kendrick. I represent the great 93rd House District in the Georgia House of Representatives, serving East DeKalb and South Gwinnett, and as the ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, or our Criminal Law Committee here in the House. I'm proud to be standing here before you in my fourth term and unfortunately saying some of the same things that I stated in my first, second, third, and fourth term. Today I'm joined by some of my colleagues as well as members of Millennial Civil Rights, and I'm also joined in spirit by others who could not be here to lend their support, like Senators Tanya Anderson and Senator Donzella James. And collectively we stand here to make it loud and clear that enough is enough. The horrific mass shootings that took place in our communities this past week are unacceptable and unfortunately becoming too commonplace. I call Dayton, Ohio and El Paso, Texas, our communities because although we are hundreds of thousands of miles away, here in Georgia, because of how our gun laws are in this nation and in this state, either one of those tragedies could have taken place right here in the state of Georgia. So I am making an appeal now to my colleagues in the House and the Senate, as well as to Governor Kemp, who may be watching or see our words today. This upcoming legislative session, let's show the nation that we care about the safety of our over 10 million residents here in the state of Georgia and pass meaningful gun control now. Not after something happens, but right now. For those of you that may think that there is no way to protect the Second Amendment rights of Georgians and to make sure we are all safe, I ask that you look into the eyes of the victims' families and tell them that the right for everyone to have any gun, anywhere, under any circumstances, comes before their right to have their loved ones alive and well. And now I'm going to introduce my colleague, Representative Park Cannon, who is going to speak to legislation that many of our colleagues introduced this past legislative session, and some of the good work that one of our best hospitals here in the state of Georgia, Grady, is doing as it relates to shooting incident-related care.
Well, good morning, and thank you all for being here. We stand here before you as members of the minority party, members who are in the Atlanta area, members who are affected by gun violence. If you are in the public and you are watching our press conference today, we want to provide you with some tangible ideas for how to engage with your lawmaker, as well as some tangible resources in the community if you have experienced violence. So first, let's speak about legislation. House Bill 970, which was proposed in 2018, would be an option for us to consider in the state of Georgia. It prohibits a certain type of artillery or gun, specifically a long gun, when you are in a public assembly of a group of more than a certain number of people. We wanted to bring this legislation forward. We wanted to hear it in committee. We wanted it to come to the floor for a vote, but instead, air silence. And we are still concerned that the continuation of long guns in public assemblies of groups is dangerous for the state of Georgia. We urge our colleagues in the House and in the Senate to look at House Bill 970, as well as many of the other measures that Democrats have proposed over the past few years. Now on to some more positive information. Grady Hospital is located just 3 blocks away from the state capitol where we're standing right now. And they have a program that if you have been impacted by gun violence, whether that is physically or mentally, you can receive services without stigma. The point of this program is to make it clear that when gun violence happens in our communities, it is not just an example of general violence. This is actually a public health occurrence. As we see this happening across the country, we need a public health approach to dealing with gun violence. That means that we need standbyers who are able to give credible messages to community members on how to stop the violence. That means we need medical staff that understands why a wound might be untreated for 3 days, and why when that person presents at the hospital, they should receive medical care, not criminal care. We want to make sure that if you are looking for resources right now, you can reach out to any of our offices to be able to reach the program at Grady Hospital as it relates to gun violence. Thank you for your attention today. We hope that you will engage with us further all the way across the state. Next, we'll hear from Representative Sandra G. Scott, who is an educator and a member of the Georgia Democratic Caucus as well.
Good morning. I am State Representative Sandra G. Scott. I represent District 76, serving Clayton and Henry County. I come to you this morning with a humble heart, asking that you continue to pray for our leaders and pray for the cities that have experienced mass murders. And please keep the families in your prayers. I'm asking everyone to make sure you register and vote. If we want to expand Medicaid, then you must vote. If you want to keep your food stamps and Section 8, you must vote. If you want change, you must vote. The only way that we can make change and make policy change is we need for you all to get out and vote. Next, we will hear from Representative Derek Jackson, who will discuss military assault weapons as a former member of the military.
Thank you. Good morning. Again, my name is Derek Jackson. I represent District 64. And as a retired military officer for over 2 decades, I know the use of assault weapons. Assault weapons that we use in the military is designed to do one thing: kill people. It's not designed to go hunting, kill people. We do not need them on our streets. In fact, law enforcement do not want them on our streets. Hunters do not even use these assault weapons for hunting. The other thing I want to address is that under the Gold Dome, we typically always say we vote the way our constituents want us to vote. Well, 90% of Americans want background checks. In fact, as a Little League coach, I had to get a background check. To be a big brother, big sister mentor, I had to get a background check. When you have to get employment, you have to get a background check. And so 90% of our society said background check is a common sense thing. The other thing I want to address briefly is that we typically always say that when we see gun violence, that's associated with mental illness, and that is incorrect. In fact, the subject matter experts that I have discussed this with, 93% of those with mental illness are professionally getting assistance. They are not dangerous. 93% of those who are getting mental illness situation addressed are not dangerous. And last but not least, I would say this: a lack of courage is an endorsement to gun violence. A lack of courage is an endorsement to gun violence. When you are silent as an elected official, you are endorsing gun violence. When there's a lack of action, when the constituents want you to act, that's an endorsement to gun violence. And we have elected officials, both at the federal and state level, that are silent. We just started school, and children are asking us to keep them safe. And so this press conference is not an anti-Second Amendment, it is a pro-public safety press conference. Let me be absolutely clear, as a retired officer, this is not about the Second Amendment. This is not anti-Second Amendment. This is about pro-public safety. When we take the oath, that's what we're taking the oath for, to keep Georgians safe. Thank you.
Okay, last you will hear from Tails Wynn with the Millennial Civil Rights to discuss the work his organization does and how it relates to civil rights.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It is in times like this, in the face of real tragedy, that we must begin to allow our hearts of compassion and empathy to now direct us into action. I mean, let's be honest, we're all here today because we share the same belief and understanding that in light of the events that took place, something must be done. And more importantly, something can be done. But it's up to all of us. And as a country, our response now bears the significant burden of reaching further towards the greater height of adequate solutions. My name is Teos Wynn, and I am the president of the Millennial Civil Rights Campaign. And I would like to begin by thanking Senators Donzella James and Tanya Anderson, and Representatives Darshawn Kendrick, Park Cannon, Derek Jackson, and Sandra Scott for giving voice and providing a platform to speak on these very important issues. We recognize today in this mournful hour that it is the emergence of a new narrative that America can no longer afford to delay. And now with both intentionality and boldness, we must unapologetically unravel and address the deeply rooted hate and embedded racism that has long existed in the very fabric of America and continues to produce echoing symptoms of anguish throughout the country today. No longer can we tolerate the sting of mass gun violence or the emboldened promotion of lingering racism and turn the other way. For that which is tolerated will only seek to remain. You see, this past weekend, America was once again reminded of its extreme vulnerability to domestic terror. As uncomfortable as it may be to admit, we must openly acknowledge that the hemorrhaging realities of pain and suffering felt today and in the past from similar occurrences are merely indicative of tolerated hate, legislative failures, and political passivity that will no longer suffice or appease this generation of Americans who have for years been left malnourished from the inadequate supply of practical solutions to gun violence and mass shootings in this country. An America that continues to leave its citizens highly susceptible to such routine tragedy is an America that for all purposes and at the expense of its greatest commodity has lost its way, tangled in a web of partisan complexity for the zero-sum gain of continuing to fail and compromise the safety of the general public. We must recognize that the loss of more American lives to public mass shootings is not a partisan issue, but rather it's an American crisis. How many more lives? How many more lives must we lose before we make the necessary adjustments to better protect our citizens by prioritizing gun safety and passing common sense legislation, such as assault weapon bans and universal background checks? As concerned citizens, now is the time to exercise our voice, and now is the time that we must commit to doing more. But as a nation, we must commit to doing better. And so it is with a heavy heart that our thoughts and prayers today reside with the families of the victims of each of the mass shootings. But it is in honor of those victims that our actions are focused and aligned toward making real and significant change. A change that we hope you will join us in by calling or writing your legislators and demanding for long overdue common sense gun reform. My name is Teos Wynn, president of the Millennial Civil Rights Campaign, and I thank you for standing with us today because together we can and we will make a difference. For more information on the campaign, visit millennialcivilrights.com.
Thank you to all of our speakers today for really pouring out your heart and soul and giving everyone that's watching a call to action. This is not the first time that you've seen us, and it certainly won't be the last as we move towards our work that we need to do as elected officials, as community leaders, and people who are concerned about the overall health of our 10 million residents here in the state of Georgia. And now we will answer any questions that the press may have.
Thank you. So more specifically, we were discussing House Bill 970 from the 2017-2018 session, which is about long guns in public assemblies. The other issues related to universal background checks and assault weapon bans are general conversations that have been going on around the country, specifically right now in Congress. There's a bill about universal background checks.
Yes.
I would just say 970, because we already proposed it.
And I will also add that Georgia is one of 5 states without a hate crime bill. A hate crime bill will be absolutely on our next legislative session that we want to bring forward as well, because that will help us deal with this current situation. And so when you look at what took place in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio, a few of their attorney generals already talked about, because there's not enough measures around this specific ordeal, their hands are tied in such a way. And so I think the hate crime bill that we've been proposed in the last couple of sessions will help mitigate that kind of situation.
Well, obviously, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus, but I serve as the Chief Deputy Whip of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. So this is a conversation that we will continue to have, continue to push. It's my hope that because it has become so pervasive and because there is a national conversation, that when we start to have town hall meetings or to talk about it, we're able to engage more community leaders, bring in more people to hear what the plans are, and to really get people down here motivated to talk to their legislators, because each one of us as legislators, we can propose the bill, but we need the community out here backing us up, supporting us, talking to their legislators in order to get it passed. We can't do it alone. And so it's my hope that we will be amplified even more because of the circumstances and really be able to engage a lot more people in order to get it done. Yeah, obviously we were hoping that he looks at this press conference and takes some notes. But listen, the wounds from Texas and Ohio are still very fresh, and tensions are running high. So I know for me, I am trying to come up with a very measured approach, because it is a very emotional issue, so that I don't come off as coming from an emotional place, but from a common sense place of safety. And I don't know if my other colleagues have been in contact, but I'm sure if you polled the 180 members, you will find that a lot have had these conversations. Good. All right. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.